In a peaceful, quiet small town, no one could have imagined such a devastating tragedy. Sarah Mitchell, a lively, joyful woman, suddenly passed away under mysterious circumstances. Her husband, John Mitchell, a hard-working farmer, quickly becomes the prime suspect when Sarah's unusual death shakes the entire community. Was this truly an accident, or is there a darker plot behind it? What really happened during Sarah's final moments? The testimony of their son and the intense investigation will keep you glued to the screen. If you love gripping stories and want to uncover the truth behind this case, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any of our content. Subscribe now to receive exclusive offers from us. Introduction. The story takes place in a peaceful small town in the heart of America, where everyone knows each other. All the residents knew Sarah Mitchell, a lively, outgoing woman. Then, suddenly one day, Sarah died unexpectedly. Everyone wanted to know what had happened to her. John Mitchell, Sarah's husband, was a hard-working and straightforward farmer. He called 911, reporting that his wife had been involved in some kind of accident. He wasn't sure what had happened. When their son, Ethan, found Sarah, she was lying motionless with a corn rake deeply embedded in her back. Sarah had fallen onto the rake, a sharp, heavy-duty farming tool. Immediately, John placed Sarah in the car and rushed her to the hospital. Along the way, he kept calling her name, but there was no response. When the dispatcher asked him to stop the car and perform CPR, John did everything he could to save his wife, but his efforts were in vain. Sarah never regained consciousness. Sarah's death shocked the entire small town. No one could believe such a horrific accident could happen. However, the story didn't end there. How could someone fall onto a four-pronged rake and end up with 6 puncture wounds? Rumors began to spread that this was no accident. Marital issues between Sarah and John started to surface. Eventually, John Mitchell was charged with first-degree murder by the state of Iowa. Ethan's testimony. One of the most anticipated witnesses in John Mitchell's murder trial was his and Sarah's 14-year-old son, Ethan Mitchell. We've chosen not to show his face. Ethan testified via closed-circuit TV. Do you swear that the testimony you give here today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes, Your Honor, Ethan responded. From the first moments of the investigation, Ethan had provided his father with an alibi. Legal expert Matthew Trana explained that Ethan told the police, "I was with my dad the whole time. I didn't lose sight of him. I was with him." This meant that if they were together the entire time, John couldn't have assaulted or killed his wife. Facing the jury, Ethan spoke of the close bond he shared with his father. We would go hunting, fishing, and work on the farm together. He described the events on the day Sarah died. His 2 younger siblings stayed inside the house while Sarah, Ethan, and John worked in the family's large hog barn. Things were going smoothly until Ethan noticed something was wrong with his mom. She said she felt dizzy. When she got up on the bucket to clean the lights, she had to steady herself to keep from falling. Her legs were shaky. Ethan was concerned because just 4 days earlier, Sarah had undergone a minor outpatient surgery. John told Sarah it wasn't safe for her to be outside and urged her to go home and rest. He asked her to grab a pet carrier from the red shed on her way, located near the barn. Ethan testified that he and his father continued working for about an hour and a half before John noticed that the pet carrier hadn't been placed where he had asked. John then asked Ethan to check on his mother. When Ethan reached the red shed, he made a horrifying discovery. She was face down, and there was a corn rake sticking out of her back. Panicking, Ethan immediately screamed for his father. John rushed over, saw Sarah, and told Ethan to get the family truck. John had to pull the corn rake out of Sarah's back to get her out of the narrow shed entrance. He picked her up, placed her on top of Ethan in the truck, and they raced toward the hospital. While driving, John called 911, reporting that he was on his way to the hospital. The dispatcher asked him to stop the car and perform CPR on Sarah. But all efforts were in vain. As the town reeled from Sarah's death, the police began to wonder, if John didn't kill Sarah, who did? And could it be Sarah's lover, Jerry Frazier, who had the motive to eliminate her from his life? Jerry Frazier. Sarah often complained that John worked too much. He preferred staying home while she liked going out. When their differences no longer attracted them, Sarah began seeking attention elsewhere. That attention came from Jerry Frazier, a married man with 2 children who managed the Mitchells' hog farm. It was through this role that Jerry met Sarah, who handled the farm's bookkeeping. According to Matthew Triano, their relationship started as work-related, but soon developed into a romantic and physical affair. This affair began in late May 2018. Jerry admitted that he and Sarah would meet in secret at the farm, on back roads, and sometimes in motels. For Jerry, the relationship seemed mostly physical, but Sarah had much stronger feelings. According to Patricia Christopherson, Sarah talked about wanting to marry Jerry one day. However, when John discovered suspicious phone records, Jerry got nervous. He told Sarah they needed to slow down, fearing John would find out. Despite the risks, the affair continued. By late summer 2018, word of Sarah's infidelity had spread. Sarah told her friend Terry that she planned to tell John about the rumors so that if he heard them, he'd think they were just gossip. Jerry also felt pressure because he had a wife and kids and didn't want to leave his family. Sarah became a threat to Jerry's family life. So when Sarah was murdered just 2 months later, Jerry became one of the prime suspects. Though Jerry had a motive, he had an alibi. On the day Sarah died, Jerry claimed he was at home in Anamosa, 45 minutes away from the farm. Like John, Jerry's son provided a solid alibi. Investigators, however, shifted their focus back to John when they discovered that Sarah had been planning to divorce him. This gave John a clear motive. If Sarah left and filed for divorce, John stood to lose half the farm, pay alimony, and possibly have his life torn apart. The investigators started to suspect John might have killed his wife to protect his assets. Sarah had confided in her friends that she was afraid of John. She believed that if he found out about her affair or plans for a divorce, he would kill her. She even told her friend where to search for her if anything ever happened. "If something happens to me, look for me in the new woods on the farm." With these new details, investigators began focusing on John's actions the day Sarah died, especially when he sent his son to check on her in the red shed, where Ethan ultimately found her body. Prosecutors believed John wanted Ethan to discover Sarah, so suspicion wouldn't fall on him. John, however, continued to maintain his innocence, claiming he had nothing to do with Sarah's death. But when Ethan, their son, changed his testimony and admitted he lost sight of his father for a short period, the case took a new turn. Although there was no physical evidence linking John to the crime scene, investigators found suspicious searches on John's iPad, including "What happens to unfaithful wives?" This discovery gave prosecutors even more confidence that they had found the killer. The verdict. After a week of testimony, it was now up to the jury to decide whether John Mitchell had murdered his wife, Sarah. The question wasn't so much whether John was innocent or guilty, but whether the prosecution had provided enough evidence to prove that he had done it. One juror, who requested to remain anonymous, felt that while the prosecution did a good job, they lacked some critical forensic evidence. Other jurors shared the same sentiment as they entered deliberations, with about half believing John was guilty and the rest undecided. After roughly 7 hours of deliberation, the jury reached their final verdict. "We, the jury, find the defendant, John Mitchell, guilty of murder in the first degree." Sarah's family breathed a sigh of relief, while John subtly shook his head before being led out of the courtroom in handcuffs. The anonymous juror explained that their decision was reached after thoroughly reviewing all the evidence. They couldn't come up with any plausible explanation other than John being the perpetrator. A series of unfortunate events didn't add up, starting with John's decision to remove the corn rake from Sarah's back and driving her away for help before calling 911. This raised suspicion that John might have been trying to hide something. When John took the stand in his defense, his lack of emotion didn't help his case. The jury found it difficult to believe him, especially when discussing topics like his family. His internet searches about the fate of unfaithful wives only added to the suspicion. After being found guilty, John hired a new legal team and filed a motion for a new trial, arguing that his original lawyers had failed to present the possibility that Sarah's death was an accident. However, the judge denied the motion, and John was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Before his sentencing, John addressed the Sarah Mitchell's death is not just the story of a broken family. It's a profound reminder of the complexity and fragility of life. Hidden secrets, broken relationships, and wrong decisions can lead to unimaginable consequences. We may never fully understand what happens behind closed doors, but it's crucial to stay aware and listen carefully. Share your thoughts on this case in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next story and to receive exclusive offers from us in the coming days.